Hi guys, welcome to my channel. If you're new, please subscribe. My channel is about all things beauty related, all kinds of makeup content, so if that interests you, be sure to subscribe. Today's video is my entire eyeshadow palette collection. I really built up my collection with subscriptions like BoxyCharm and then me just purchasing eyeshadow palettes. I get very few, if any, PR packages, so a lot of this, like 95% of it, is purchased myself. If you watch my channel, you know eyeshadow is one of my favorite makeup products, my favorite thing to play with. I just love eyeshadow. I love shopping for it. I love using it. I love applying it on other people and myself, and I just love eyeshadow. Even though I feel like the trends nowadays, like dramatic eye looks and lots of eyeshadow, really isn't on trend right now. I still like to play with it, and I film tutorials and everything eyeshadow related, but I am definitely a neutral girl. I do prefer neutral eye looks and neutral eyeshadow palettes. So we're just gonna jump right into it, and a lot of the stuff I'm first gonna talk about is older eyeshadow palettes, because as I was pulling out my eyeshadow palettes, I was pulling out the newer stuff first, which ended up on the bottom. But yeah, so we'll jump right into it. Alright, so Ciate London. I just recently got a mystery box of a bunch of Ciate London products, and this is their bronzer palette. So pretty. Be perfect for the holidays. That's the Ciate eyeshadow palette. Next, this is actually a palette that got sent to me. This is the Florasis Beauty eyeshadow palette. I have not even swatched it. It's so pretty. Cannot wait to play with this. But I've had this for about a week or so, and I haven't made any tutorials with it yet, but I definitely want to play with this. This is the Florasis palette in Soaring Sunlight. This is an older palette. This is a Ciate London palette I got in BoxyCharm. This is the editor palette, and super, super pretty. Just like a really pretty multicolored palette. Next is an absolute favorite. This is the Tartelette Juicy palette. This is the Tartelette Juicy. And this palette is just, I wish they never discontinued this palette because it's so pretty and perfect, but they do have a smaller version of this. I filmed several tutorials with the Tartelette Juicy palette. It is one of my favorite Tarte palettes. All right, next, this is another Tarte palette. This is the BU palette. This is their, what's that brand? Sugar Rush. And I don't know, I was never really a fan. Like, the colors called my name, but I feel like the quality just wasn't there. So it's just kind of sat in my collection, and I look at it and I think it's so pretty and I never get rid of it. But yeah, so that's the BU palette by Tarte. Next, I have the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette. So I created some tutorials using this palette, but I don't know, the formula just wasn't there for me. Such a pretty palette, and I love Jaclyn Hill. But the Divine Neutrals palette, like, this palette screams me. Like I told you, I'm a neutral palette kind of girl, but it did not perform. It's a palette I don't really reach for. All right, next is my Z palette. So I have Makeup Geek in here, I have MAC, I have some really small mini Urban Decay, and I have ColourPop. And I never, ever, ever, ever play with this, but there's just so many good memories with this palette, like the MAC eyeshadows, the Makeup Geek, like, iconic. So I still have that. Next is a random brand from BoxyCharm, the Illuminati, or not Illuminati, Illumamesque, I have no idea. It's called this is the Unveiled Artistry palette. And I played with this one time on vacation. I thought it was so cute. I made a really cute eye look, and I never really touched it since then. But it's so pretty, and it's a really nice neutral palette, and I just like can't get rid of it. So still have that palette, and it feels really nice. It's like really nice packaging, and it's like heavy. So next I have the Dominique Cosmetics Celestial Thunder. Gorgeous, gorgeous pops of colors. So this is a really good palette to have for Halloween. So this is the Celestial Thunder Dominique Cosmetics eyeshadow palette. I love Dominique Cosmetics products. I think she has some really good stuff. This is my second Dominique Cosmetics eyeshadow palette. Next, this eyeshadow palette was sent to me. This is the Naked Urban Decay Robin Eisenberg palette. Again, a perfect Halloween palette. You have this perfect rainbow colors, perfect for Pride Month. And yeah, so I have the Naked Robin Eisenhower palette. Oh my gosh, if you have been a subscriber for a while, when I first started my channel, I used the Gingerbread Extra Spicy palette by Too Faced. I created so many tutorials with this. This is like my first palette where like tutorials I created got a lot of views. And it's such a good palette. And I'll probably keep this forever because it's just memories of me like starting on YouTube and creating eyeshadow tutorials. But these palettes that come like this, and they're like gingerbread, cinnamon bun, all those palettes are just so good. I had to stop buying them because I feel like they're kind of all the same. And I'm like, you do not need another one. Like, you don't need another one. Because I feel like I do get bored of them pretty easy, but they're so pretty. So this is the Gingerbread Extra Spicy palette, limited edition. And then I have the Too Faced Cinnamon Swirl palette. Look how pretty. So pretty. I love these neutrals right here. Like, ugh, love this palette. Comes with a mirror, great formula. So the Too Faced Cinnamon Swirl palette. Next, I have the Naked Urban Decay Wild West palette. The packaging of this palette is just absolutely stunning. I think Urban Decay killed it. Love the packaging and even like the palette itself. I think it's pretty unique. There's not a bunch of eyeshadow palettes with this color palette. And I created several tutorials using this palette, and I think me using this palette is how I got on Urban Decay's radar, which is how they sent me this palette. But I really, really love the Urban Decay Wild West palette, and they do have a lot of sales where you can get this for like 50% off. If you want it, wait for a sale. Next, this is a random palette from BoxyCharm. It is Glam Palette. I don't even know the brand. Designed, whatever. This palette. But this purple shade right here, I created a video using this. It is the most stunning shimmer ever. I love this palette because of that one eyeshadow. And yeah, so like that eyeshadow right there is so pretty. Oh my gosh, next, so this was like the first palette too I started using on my channel. This is the Too Faced Natural Lust palette. Limited edition. I just like can't get over how many eyeshadows you get. The formula of them, so good. The huge mirror comes with it. Like, again, I'm gonna keep this eyeshadow palette forever because it's just so many good memories. And it says on the back here, the original Natural Eyes palette in 2009, which is just crazy because I think I got this in like 2019. And yeah, so it's like 4 years ago. But I just love this palette, so. And if you're an old school subscriber, you know I've created several tutorials with this, like even recently created tutorials with this because it's such a good palette. Such a good palette. Okay. So next is this random Morphe palette. So this is the 3502 palette, which I never use. I don't know why. I feel like I never reach for Morphe anymore, and I used to use it so much. Like when I worked at Ulta, they didn't have Morphe yet, and I used to tell customers about Morphe. And I used to rave about Morphe, but I really don't reach for my Morphe palettes anymore, which makes me really sad because I think Morphe, like, if Morphe was around when I was in college, I would have had so many good quality eyeshadow palettes. Because they are really affordable, and I think they do have really good eyeshadows. But this is the 305, 352, back when I was on my super obsessed with the warm eyeshadows phase, and yeah, I don't really use this that often. Next, I have my Morphe Jeffree Star palette. I also created some tutorials on my channel early on with this palette that got me started really, and really pretty. I don't ever reach for this. Like if I was gonna do a really fun Barbie look, this is a perfect palette to use for that and just to have in my collection. But yeah, super cute, but I never really use it anymore. This is the 25A Copper Spice palette that I also never really used. Really pretty neutral palette, but I feel like this one, the quality just wasn't there. But again, you know how much I love neutral eyeshadow palettes, so it will stay in my collection, but really don't use it. Oh my gosh, next is Proof is in the Pudding eyeshadow palette. My friend got this for me. The Beauty Bakery palette. Like, look how cute. I love this palette. It's very warm. I think it's so cute. I love Beauty Bakery. I love everything about the brand. and I still have this palette. I used this for a little bit. It's definitely more of an orange tone kind of palette, but I would love to use this some more. Next, I have this Ofra palette. Ofra has stunning highlighters, stunning formula. This is the only Ofra palette I have, and I got this in a BoxyCharm. This blush is so pretty. It looks like I barely even used it, but I've used it several times. And same with the bronzer and the highlighter. Like, such a good palette. I need to play with this more. But yeah, Ofra. This is the Ofra Good To Go palette. Oh my gosh. So next is the Sephora Pro palette. Do you guys remember these palettes? So this is the Sephora Pro palette in the shades Just Warm. And the formula wasn't ever there, but I like loved this palette because I remember I'd go to Sephora and I would just stare at it and I'd be like, one day I'm gonna buy it. One day I'm gonna buy it. And I finally bought it. And the formula is just like drier and just not that great, but I still have it. And once upon a time, I thought this was gonna be like the eyeshadow palette, but it's not. So I still have that. And then of course the Jaclyn Hill, just the Jaclyn Hill palette is what it's called. The 35 Dream Colors palette. Mine is super dirty, much loved. I've had a few requests recently to make some eye looks with this palette, so I will have to do that because I love this palette. Like when I first had COVID and I was a NICU nurse, I was home for like a week and a half and I just decided I'm just gonna film tutorials while I'm recovering. And the Jaclyn Hill palette was one I really played with during my recovery. So it's kind of funny because when I see this, it reminds me when I first had COVID. But the Jaclyn Hill palette. So here's my second Dominique Cosmetics palette. This is a transition palette, and I love the idea of having a palette that is just transition shades. Like, that is so genius. So here are all these really great transition shades. I love this palette. I really need to use this more. It's definitely like a warmer palette. And yeah, the Dominique Cosmetics transition palette, and the packaging is so pretty, like the watercolor. I absolutely love it. All right, next is a palette I used a lot on my channel too. It's the Tartelette Full Bloom Tarte palette. And look at all those gorgeous eyeshadows. You get pops of color with the pinks and the purples. Like, love this palette. You get a huge mirror. I love the watercolor outside packaging. I really want the Tarte smaller palette. I think it's called Full Bloom as well or something. Don't drive me crazy. But anyway, I really want that palette because it's like super popular. It's a smaller version, I think, of this one. But I can never convince myself to buy it, but I want it. It's on my radar. Next, I have ColourPop Bare Necessities. I've gotten some requests lately for ColourPop's eyeshadow palettes. So love Bare Necessities. I have so many tutorials on my channel using this palette. I think it is like the perfect warm tone palette. Again, I wish in college I had eyeshadow palettes like this that were super budget friendly and great quality. So I have Bare Necessities by ColourPop. Next, I have Cold Stone Fox by ColourPop, another popular one on my channel. Such a great cool tone eyeshadow palette. I pack this with me if when I travel with my wife because she's a cool tone kind of girl, and I can create some of my looks with this. Not flying though, more like for a beach weekend I'll bring this because then I know I have every single shade I need to create a cool tone look for her. But Stone Cold Fox eyeshadow palette, so good. Next is an eyeshadow palette I really haven't been able to play with. It is the, what is this brand? Bite Beauty? Crap, what is it called? Oh my gosh, it's gonna drive me crazy. Anyway, that brand, it's like a UK brand, I think, EYE Bright. Look at these gorgeous eyeshadows. So I got this for Pride and I just want it in my collection. Just so stunning. Like if I wanted to create a really good Christmas look, I would use this eyeshadow palette. But again, I like neutrals. But just look at those vibrant reds, vibrant purples, like such a good palette to have in your collection. There was a tutorial I watched for a girl that made a look with this palette using the purple shades, that whole row, and she made the prettiest halo eye look. stunning. And that's what made me buy this palette. All right, next is just a random, oh, this is Hip Dot. This is their Zion palette, and it is a talc-free formula. I've actually never used this. I think it's cute, but I would love to give this away, but I never used it. Oh my gosh, this is the BFF Alondra and Elsie BH Cosmetics palette, the BFF eyeshadow palette. This was the most underrated eyeshadow palette. It's so perfect. Like, I'm serious. Like, these blues down here, that red called, or this shimmer Messy was so pretty. And I think I created 1 or 2 tutorials with this palette, but like looking at this palette all over again, I'm just like, these shades are stunning, stunning. And I know, like, I just feel like this palette was so good. I don't even know who these BFF girls are, but their color selection for this palette I absolutely love. I think it's super artsy, but there's so many neutrals in here. Like, such a stunning palette, so underrated. And yeah, that's the BFF palette. Next is this Tarte, it's like a contour eyeshadow palette. It's called Clay Play. So perfect for travel. The perfect palette. You have all your neutral shades in here. All right, next is a newer palette. This is Natasha Denona. I Need a New Palette. So this is my first ever Natasha Denona palette. Stunning, so pretty. I already have several tutorials on my channel using this palette, and there's many more to come. So Natasha Denona, I Need a Nude palette. Another one I got from BoxyCharm is this iconic London Gold palette. This is the Sunset to Sunrise eyeshadow palette, which looks like that. I have not really played with this palette, but I do love Iconic London's products. Next is a Anastasia Beverly Hills, what is this, Norbina collection, volume 3. These eyeshadows are so beautiful, pigmented, stunning, stunning pops of color. Again, I'm a neutral palette kind of girl, but I can see lots of cool shades in this palette if you want to do a fun holiday, Christmas pops of color, artsy eye look. Stunning. And ABH's formula is one of my top favorite eyeshadow formulas. I just love her formula. All right, and next is the Too Faced Natural Matte Palette. I got this in BoxyCharm. Love this palette. This is one of my wife's favorite palettes. So many cute neutral eyeshadow palettes. Perfect for your collection, perfect for travel, perfect for sitting on your vanity with this really pretty outside packaging. Love this palette. So next are 2 Viseart palettes. So Viseart's formula is insanely good. If you've never tried a Viseart palette, I highly recommend it. Try and look for sales if they're pretty pricey. It's a French-based company, if I remember correctly. Yeah, French professional Viseart eyeshadow palettes. Stunning. So this is the warm one. This is the neutral matte eyeshadow palette. So pretty. And then I have the neutral matte eyeshadow palette. I think that's why these were BoxyCharm. I bought these on BoxyCharm's website and they were on sale. And I think it's because the packaging on the back got messed up. And I can't believe I just realized that because they're both labeled that. But look how pretty. Like the blackest black you'll ever use. I just love these palettes. The formula is so good. Definitely recommend having your collection. So next is a newer palette. This is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Rose Metals palette. I have several tutorials on my channel using this palette. So pretty. Love the packaging. Love ABH's formula. Just absolutely love. Love, love, love. And this look right now is Anastasia Beverly Hills Soft Glam palette. So next I have the ABH Renaissance, Modern Renaissance palette. Look how much I've used, look how dirty. I feel like there's people who've complained in the comments before about how dirty my eyeshadow palettes are, but I feel like a clean eyeshadow palette, like, are you using it right? Because I get in there. I get messy with my eyeshadow palettes. So this is the Modern Renaissance eyeshadow palette. Next I have the Anastasia Beverly Hills Nouveau palette, which is so stunning. I love the color palette. So many tutorials using this palette as well. Love the packaging. Like, ABH kills it every single time. Then I have the Soft Glam, which is on my eyes right now. This palette is so loved that it's broken, so it like fell out of the package. And just look at those gorgeous shades. This is a palette everybody needs. Like, you need this palette. So yeah, you need this palette. Soft Glam ABH. Next, I have the Fenty Beauty palette. This is the Moroccan Spice palette. Haven't really used this palette that much. So, so, so pretty. Love Fenty makeup products. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So the Too Faced, the Natural Nudes Born This Way palette. One of my top favorite eyeshadow palettes ever. Ever, ever, ever. One of my most viewed videos is a tutorial with this palette. Again, this is an eyeshadow palette that everybody needs. It's perfect. It's neutral. It's just perfect. Love this palette. Feel like I should play with this palette some more, but I feel like I've created so many looks with this palette. It's like, I feel like I just repeat myself, but love, 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 love this palette. And then they came out with another version. This is the Sunset Stripped Born This Way palette, which the packaging is stunning. And this is what she looks like. Definitely warmer. And I just, again, love this palette. This one has a scent though. It's a little bit, it's an odd scent. It smells like flowers. I don't know, kind of strange, but gorgeous, gorgeous packaging. And I just love these two palettes. If you're a neutral girl, you need both these palettes in your collection. They're absolutely perfect. Next is another top favorite. This is the Patrick Ta Major Dimensions palette. One of these eyeshadows is not in all the way, so I'm not gonna, but yeah, so pretty. I have several tutorials using this palette. This was my go-to travel palette, but like one of these eyeshadows like is loose. The packaging, so perfect. Patrick Ta, I mean, seriously, the rose gold packaging is stunning. And the formula is amazing. This one is definitely on the warmer side. Definitely a warmer palette. Huge mirror. Just absolutely love this palette. Again, if you're a neutral girl, you need that palette. So next is a random palette I picked up at the drugstore one day. The Physicians Formula. This is the Rosé palette. And these shadows were actually really pigmented and beautiful. I have a tutorial using this palette as well. Next is the Morphe Madison Beer palette. This is the Channel Surfing Artistry palette. Love Madison Beer. And this color story is absolutely stunning. I have several tutorials using this as well. And I loved the formula of this. Morphe did a really good job. Comes with a huge mirror. Love the Madison Beer palette. So this is a palette I didn't really like that much. I love Manny MUA. I love him. I've been watching him for years. But his glam palette with Morphe was just not that good. I was really excited for this Aries shade. This is that blue-brown eyeshadow. These highlighters were all right. But like the formula of the rest of the eyeshadows just was like dry and not good. So that was a disappointment. Next is a Wander Beauty BoxyCharm eyeshadow palette. This is the Getaway palette, which is perfect for a little beach weekend eyeshadow palette. You get a blush, a highlighter, and these gorgeous warm tone shimmer shades. So I really liked this palette. Yeah, it's so funny because it's such a cute palette, you know, like it's perfect for an everyday neutral kind of girl, especially if you're like a minimal makeup kind of girl, but it didn't get that much hype. And it's funny how now I'm like interested in it all over again. So next, this is the Real Her eyeshadow palette, the Real Her Dreams So Big eyeshadow palette. Never really used this. Next is Alter Ego. I have a coupon code below. I believe it's LexiF Makeup. Alter Ego makes super affordable dupe eyeshadow palettes that have really good quality. So this is her, this is Alter Ego Sakura palette, which looks like that. I have a tutorial using this palette. You have your neutrals, your mints, and your pinks. And yeah, so I have a tutorial using this palette. I have another Alter Ego palette. These palettes were sent to me, the Alter Ego palettes. This is the Alter Ego Harmony palette. I don't know what happened to that shadow, but gorgeous, gorgeous berry tone eyeshadow palette. Next is one I got on BoxyCharm. This is the Violet Boss All of You Forever eyeshadow palette. I created a stunning green smoky eye with this palette, and I used that shade right there. and that green down there, and I love the look I created with this palette. I have a tutorial with that. Next is another Alter Ego palette. This is the Coastal palette, which looks like that. And it's like a dupe for Huda Beauty's palette, I think. Stunning, stunning, gorgeous. I think I created some eye looks with this as well. So pretty. Definitely those shimmers were like stunning. Love Alter Ego. I have another one called Shadow Kiss by Alter Ego, which is a really nice cool tone neutral palette. I believe this is a dupe for Natasha Denona. And this is the Alter Ego Shadow Kiss palette. Next is a newer palette. This is by What's Up Beauty. Look at that gorgeous packaging. It's the Dragon Eye palette, and I created a stunning eyeshadow look. It's a pink shimmery eye look with this palette. You get these pink rosy matte shades, and yeah, like the shimmers in this palette are unreal. Unreal. Like they're so beautiful. They're like multi-chromatic, just stunning. Like look at those. Oh my gosh, I love this palette. Love What's Up Beauty. This palette was sent to me as well. Here's another Alter Ego palette. This is the Midsummer palette. So pretty. This is supposed to be a dupe for Anastasia Beverly Hills. So this is Midsummer by Alter Ego. So pretty. Next is a Kim Kardashian, the Artist and the Muse palette with Mario. I love Mario, like I love Mario. And this is her KKW Mario, the Artist and the Muse palette, which I just adore and absolutely love this palette. Looks like I barely even used it, but these two shades right here were like my go-to everyday shades for the longest time. Love this palette. The formula though has not aged very well. It is pretty dry now, but I still just love that palette. Next is a Marc Jacobs palette. Anybody remembers Marc Jacobs Beauty? This was the Fantasine palette, which is all kind of like rosy gold tone shades. The formula of this was absolutely terrible, so I need to get rid of that. Next is a Natasha Denona palette I got in a BoxyCharm. This is in the one of those 5-pan palettes, and it's in the shade, and this is the Natasha Denona Peak 5-pan eyeshadow palette. I have a tutorial using this. I really don't use this that much though. So next I have these Morphe palettes. They're Jaclyn Hill's, which one's this one? Ring the Alarm palette. I don't ever use these. The Bling Boss palette, I need to get rid of them. Never use them. Dark Magic, again, never use them. The formula just wasn't there. Love Jaclyn Hill, just did not like the formula. And this is the Armed and Gorgeous palette. Then I have another Natasha Denona palette. This is the Jubilee palette, which I, again, have no idea how you would create a look with this palette. Just nothing blends together. I'm confused, but I mean, nothing like flows together. So I was really confused with this palette. And this is the Jubilee palette. Next I have a color, no it's not, it's a highlighting palette. And then I have a Ditto Venus palette limited edition. I just thought the shimmers in this palette were super pretty, and it's like planets. I don't even know why I still own this. I got it in a BoxyCharm. And then I have this random Fairy Tale Storybook Cosmetics palette, which looks like that. I don't know why I still own that either. Then we have Huda Beauty Empowered palette. Oh my gosh, I love this palette. I have several tutorials on my channel using this palette. Her formula is so, so good. One of my top favorite formulas. Highly recommend. And then I have the Pretty Grunge Huda Beauty palette. So pretty. This is a very, probably most recent purchase palette. Stunning, cool tone, highly pigmented palette. Love, love, love. And then I have this e.l.f. affordable. This is in this shade. I have Rose Gold Sunset Stripped palette by e.l.f. Super pigmented, amazing. Again, I wish I had palettes like this in college. e.l.f. kills it with their eyeshadow palettes. And then this is the Summer Breeze palette. So, so, so pretty, all mattes. Love that. These palettes are $10 a piece. And then I have a Fenty Beauty palette. This is the Snapped Shadows palette. I never ever use this. The quality isn't there. Love Fenty Beauty, but that palette was terrible. Then I have these old school Milani palettes. This is the Soft and Sultry palette. These eyeshadow palettes formula was so good. Milani discontinued these palettes. I got these actually at TJ Maxx on clearance, and I love the formula of these palettes. And again, Milani, and this is the Bold Obsessed palette. So, so, so pretty. And then two palettes that had a lot of hype that I never liked. So this is the Wet n Wild Always Naked palette. I know Tati raved about this palette, but I never liked the formula. I tried to use them. I was going to create a tutorial, but I just didn't like it. I don't know. Maybe I'll give it another chance. But I really thought it was dry and very drugstore quality. So this is the, oh, I didn't even open this one. But this is the Naked Always Blushing palette. Then I have a Catrice 5 in a box palette. This is supposed to be a dupe for Natasha Denona. It's a really nice neutral palette. I have the tutorial using that. And then I have these two Naked palettes that Irma Decay sent me. This is the Smiley Chill Happy palette. I love the packaging. This is the Smiley Chill Happy palette. This is a really nice Valentine's Day kind of palette. And then I have Irma Decay Smiley Mucho Happy. So it's Smiley Mucho Happy looks like. And it's got like a pop of color blue and very warm. Those are really cute. Those are really good quality. And then I have one of my favorite eyeshadow palettes ever, Makeup by Mario, because Mario, of course, came out with his own makeup line. And this is his Master Mattes palette. Love this palette. It's one of my go-to everyday eyeshadow palettes, one of my favorite travel palettes. I love that palette. And then I have the Going Coconuts by ColourPop palette. Look how destroyed this palette is. I keep saying I'm going to buy a new one, and I just don't. But look how stunning. Gorgeous warm tones. I loved this palette. I traveled with it. It clearly fell apart, but I do need a new one. Then I have this Makeup Revolution Forever Dynamic palette. I love the tin packaging, the nude soft outer packaging. And those are the eyeshadows, and it's alright. Like, it's not terrible. It's just definitely one that I created one or two looks with, and I never really touched it again. But Makeup Revolution has really good products. And then I have one of my newer eyeshadow palettes. This is Sultry by Anastasia Beverly Hills. This is her new mini eyeshadow palette because Sultry I don't believe is available anymore. So Anastasia Beverly Hills Sultry Mini. I have a tutorial using this, and I want to film some more with that. And then I have ColourPop I don't even know how to say this. Bois Dior Nior palette. The quality in this palette wasn't there, but I love the palette, the Story palette here. I love the shades, but the quality just wasn't there. And I love the packaging. I think the packaging is super, super stunning. Then I have my That's Taupe palette. This is my favorite palette to use on my wife. It's a cool tone, perfect everyday palette and super affordable. I love the packaging. I love the snake skin. Love the shades. Love the way they blend. Perfect palette. I use this on my wife all the time and I travel with it. Another palette similar to that is the Deja Brew palette. This is the Deja Brew ColourPop palette. I got this at Target and I absolutely love this palette as well. I want to film some more with this because I know a lot of my subscribers have this palette. And then I have the Dreamy Dozen Lawless palette. This is a newer palette and there she is. So pretty, talc-free, absolutely love her. Alright guys, that completes my entire eyeshadow palette collection. I feel like I have a really good size. I feel like my eyeshadow palette's not super crazy and unrealistic, but a lot of this was built up with BoxyCharm. So if you want to build up your collection, I suggest getting into a makeup subscription. But yeah, so that completes my entire eyeshadow palette collection. Be sure to subscribe, like, and comment, and I'll see you in my next video.